Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders to help it grow. Lance, good to see you. You sort of took most of the week off last week. Always glad to have you back. Katie, as always, we love Katie's becoming more and more of an expert in this industry, and Katie, we love what you're doing for this. Please send your questions to Joseph or myself, and it can be on any topic, and we'd love to answer your questions. We'd like to be a resource for that. Today's topic is business acquisition. Oh, well, I go back to the certificate, Joseph, in case we got some new people here. Please download these, keep track of these. This helps satisfy the answer to the question by regulators, SBA auditors, etc. What are you doing for training? This works, doesn't it, Lance?
It does. It's an important topic that when SBA does a review, they're going to ask if FDIC, OCC, whoever your regulator is, they're going to ask, and even your internal audit group is very likely to ask.
So just download them. You can sign them if you want. Keep track of them in PDF. Poll question number 1. Have you financed a change of ownership with a PPP loan on their books?
Bob, I've not done this, but I've gotten quite a plethora of questions about this.
Yes. Those are very interesting responses. Remember that 27%? We will address that in a second, but I thought it'd be a little bit higher, but 27% say yes, 69% say no. Now, what percentage of SBA loans are used to finance business acquisition loans?
Well, Bob, I don't know the answer to this one.
Really?
My best guess is going to be 10 to 20%, but I'm probably wrong.
Katie, what's the answer?
So I checked it today, and for 7A, it's 25% right now. I was just kind of checking 504 as well, and that looks like that's around 13%. So 7A is obviously the big winner there.
Yeah. And Lance, do those numbers surprise you that they're that high?
Not at all, Bob. I was thinking 20% was about the mark, and I work both 7A and 504 loans. You don't see it as often in the 504 product as you do the 7A, but, SBA allows someone to acquire a business with 10% equity injection, which makes it very attractive.
Right. And it's a very important niche, and that's why I thought in terms of the first poll question, we had 27%. I thought that would be a little bit higher. If you're not doing business acquisition loans, you may want to reconsider a strategy or implement a strategy for going after that market. And our final question is, Lance, this one's sort of for you. How risky are these loans?
Well, if you underwrite them properly, I don't feel like there's any significant additional risk, but that's as long as you underwrite them properly.
We do not have the stats for this, so Go ahead, Lance.
One of the most common problems that I see, Bob, is making sure that your borrower is purchasing the business at a reasonable price that will cover the debt. Quite often these business acquisition loans, the person selling the business has talked to a broker and they've told them it's worth X. I can't tell you how many times, Bob, I've worked a business acquisition loan. We did the business appraisal and it didn't come in anywhere close to the purchase price.
Right. The only risk that you need to be careful, in my opinion, well, there's a lot of, risk under traditional underwriting, but be careful of values. But number 2 is make sure you're documenting that equity injection correctly for these type of loans. Correct, Lance?
Absolutely. There's a requirement. It's not, there's a 10% equity injection requirement that could be split up between 5% seller finance on full standby and 5% from the borrower. But you want to make sure you get the proper amount of equity injection. You can require more if you feel it's prudent to do so, and if it's in an industry that you feel like it needs more. But the SBA minimum is 10%, and that could be split up between seller finance on full standby and our borrower cash injection.
Lance, you get a application in front of you, and let's say it's the niece Katie wants to buy the business from her uncle, and uncle wants to stay on as a 15% owner.
Business acquisition loans require that they acquire 100% of the ownership of that business. The uncle could stay on for a short period of time mentoring Katie through the process of kind of getting her arms around the business, but there has to be a short time period for that, usually a year or less.
Very good. And that type of transaction, are we able to do related party transactions?
You can do related party transactions, but it does change some of the underwriting requirements. In particular, for instance, if there's a business acquisition loan with more than $250,000 in blue sky, you're going to have to get a third-party business appraisal or business valuation, whatever you want to call it. On a related party, you have to have a business valuation regardless of the amount of blue sky.
Lance, the SOP is silent. Well, it addresses it on how much we can put for add backs into the cash flow. How aggressive should lenders be? I.e., we have an employee who's a son or daughter who's on it. We have other write-offs for the house, the vacation house in the Ozarks. How aggressive should the underwriter be in doing those add backs to make the cash flow work?
Well, I think you need to be real prudent in determining what the add backs, obviously interest expense, depreciation expense, amortization. And there are owner expenses that can be added back, but make sure, I see people that immediately want to add back the owner's compensation. Well, the buyer's going to have to pay themselves something to live on. Right. So, adding back owner's compensation is not always the correct add back. So just be prudent and make sure that you don't add back, everything the owner's taking out of or seller's taking out of the business. You want to make sure that expense won't still exist with the new owner.
What is your personal opinion about seller carrybacks?
I think
tell me about that.
I like them, Bob. Part of the reason I like them is if you do get down the road and you do have a problem with the loan, you typically will have a willing buyer in a lot of circumstances to take it back, so it can make liquidation a lot less painful when you have seller financing on full standby, because they're still a part of the deal until the SBA loan pays off.
Katie, this notice came through on Saturday. What is it telling the industry?
So we got this on Saturday, like you said, and it really tells us that the borrower for a PPP loan is going to have to notify their lender in writing when they're contemplating a change of ownership transaction and provide that lender with a copy of their proposed agreements. This really might complicate it for the borrower who might already be kind of struggling in that, if that's the reason for their transaction. But otherwise, yeah, it's just telling us we need that in writing now.
And Lance, do you see any what are the landmines in this type of transaction?
Well, when there was some additional guidance in the notice about this, but there are only certain circumstances where you can do it without submitting to the GP processing, but you can. And typically, as a institution that's financing one of these, you're going to want to escrow the amount of the PPP loan until forgiveness is granted. But there are circumstances where you can do it. I've gotten calls from all over the country. Hey, we've got a business acquisition loan with a company that has a PPP loan. We've escrowed an amount equal to the PPP loan. Are we going to be okay? My answer a couple of weeks ago, Bob, would have been, I'm not sure. And because a lot of people did these under delegated processing. With the release, it appears as long as you follow the guidelines in the release, you can, in fact, do this.
Lance, Russell sent us not really a question, but a statement or an opinion. It says business valuation reports are a key to business acquisitions. Tell us about that. When do we have to get one, and at what level of valuation do we need, i.e. can we just go to the website, or do we need to hire an appraiser?
Well, the business valuation occurs, the third-party business valuation, when the purchase price minus the assets being acquired, that is fixed assets, real estate, equipment. If it's $250,000 or more, it requires a third-party valuation. If it's less, you can do a in-house valuation. And there's some circumstances where you have to have a third-party valuation irregardless, like a sale between related parties. Typically, we will do it during the underwriting process, and it'll be part of the underwriting process, and that's what I recommend, because you could order the business valuation, go through, approve the loan, and get working toward the closing table and get the valuation in, and it blows the deal up, or it changes the structure of the deal dramatically. So order the valuation during the underwriting process. That'll help you avoid potential landmines.
My two comments on that are, number one, if it's a small enough deal, you can get one of these appraisers to give you a one-page letter what they think their value is. They will charge you a minimum amount for that. So even though what is the limit that we need an appraisal for, Lance? Is it $350?
$250 in Blue Sky.
Yeah. But if the transaction is let's say the transaction is $200,000, and we don't want to get a full appraiser, you can get a one-page opinion letter saying basically this makes sense. The second thing I would encourage you, go ahead.
Or if you have someone in your bank that's qualified, as an example, Bob, many years ago I went through the business valuation certification program and was certified as a business valuation specialist. I've got a bunch of tools, certainly can do a quality business valuation on any size business, but if we have one under 250, I can do it.
Yeah, and the SOP is very clear that you're allowed to do that. The second thing is, if you hire an appraiser, get one that has some SBA experiences. There are nuances in SBA lending. There's a number of qualified individuals who do this type of service. So hire one that does SBA. Katie, let's wrap up this segment. Tell me why this is an important topic for lenders today.
Well, there's an interesting kind of shift going on right now. Of course, as we know, baby boomers are retiring or reaching retirement age, and that started in 2008, and you're going to get the last ones, turning 65 around 2031. So you're seeing a lot of them retiring. In fact, clear up until a few months ago, they were retiring at record speeds. Now, you are seeing a little bit of a shift, and Lance is saying that he's still getting a lot of these. But Fox was just reporting a couple of weeks ago here that 1 in 4 baby boomers are now delaying their retirement due to uncertainty around their investment portfolio. But they're still shifting that, and you're still seeing sometimes the younger generation taking over their parents or their uncles or whatever, their businesses. So you are seeing that shift. And so it's a really big topic right now, and it's going to continue to be a big topic as we see COVID's going to affect this, and just as we have an aging population, that's going to affect it as well.
Very good. Go ahead, Lance. Do you want to wrap up on this?
Well, I would see a number. Well, first of all, a lot of small business owners, their retirement centers around the value of their business. and some by virtue of the difficult economic circumstances we're in are saying, hey, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. So I want to cash in now, walk away with my retirement and just live a good life. I do see that happening. Now, I'm actually in the baby boomer generation. I was the very tail end of it, Bob. And I'm seeing some of my friends who, my brother, I talk about my brother. He's been in the furniture business now 32 years, and he is looking to transition to his son. So there's going to be a transition in ownership there, and you're seeing a lot of that.
Very good. Tell us, let's do a PPP update, Katie. Basically no news, correct?
Right. We're not hearing anything right now from the Senate. Obviously, we heard last week that they had passed a package in the House, but that package has not moved yet. So as soon as we hear something, I'll let you know.
Lance, so Raman asked this question, and we're getting this questions from other people that, hey, the forgiveness is due now. What do we do? I mean, do we apply for the forgiveness? Do we send the application to SBA? Do we still sit on it? What do you recommend?
The Flexibility Act added 24 weeks from the covered period before forgiveness has to be applied for. We're still waiting. I got a little anxious last week because I saw some legislation talking about lowering the blanket forgiveness to like $50,000. Which really was not good. But now today I'm seeing it back at $150,000. That blanket forgiveness, a large percentage of your PPP borrowers have heard about that and are waiting to see if that's in fact the case. But right now we have the rules. You use the 3508 EZ in most circumstances and 3508 on the more complex ones. And they can go ahead and apply for forgiveness. And SBA's accepting applications in their portal. They haven't really decisioned any. However, our Treasury Secretary said that will start very soon.
Katie, you're going to be writing tomorrow about the GAO report. When did this report come out?
This report came out technically on October 1st, but I didn't see it published anywhere online until last weekend. So I don't know if it was just hard to find or hidden or what. But basically the overarching idea behind this report is that the GAO has submitted several other reports in the past that looked at PPP and the EIDL program. And in June, they said that they need to have a little bit more oversight. Obviously, the program needed to get up and running quickly, and that's fine. But of course, they need to make sure that moving forward, there's oversight. Well, last month they submitted yet another report, and that report said that they still hadn't really done anything or not a significant amount of things, and so the GAO was still pushing them to at least tell them what they're planning on doing, if they're going to implement some kind of oversight, what that oversight might look like. And now they're saying again that the SBA still has not really submitted anything to the GAO to review. So the GAO is, of course, still concerned about fraud in these programs if the SBA does not have something in place yet.
I'm stealing Katie's thunder, but on Wednesday, she's going to be writing an article, covering article on what's going on in the UK in their lending scheme. And it's very fascinating, and they're having fraud issues and a lot of other issues, and they do things a little bit differently, so that'll be fun. Hey, real quick wrap up, Katie. What's the good news that we want to be fair. So you wrote today 72% of small businesses are optimistic. Is this a good news article?
I think that's actually pretty great news, just hearing that. This is from Verizon's report, and they were looking at mostly how businesses are implementing work from home. But one of their findings was that 72% of small businesses now say that they are going to be able to stay open at least another 6 months. Now, those are businesses that are currently open, so that's not counting any of the businesses that have already had to close. But that number is a lot higher than we were seeing a few months ago. So I think that's a great sign. But you are still seeing some negative effects, and the report also said that there are 2 out of 3 small businesses are feeling those negative effects, but it looks like a significant number are still going to be able to stay open despite those.
The reading between the lines, Lance, on this is that entrepreneurs are Renaissance people. They're flexible and they're trying to figure out how to make this work.
Entrepreneurs, and Bob, I actually had a small business for 8 years. They will find ways, and I fought through a recession when I had my small business. Entrepreneurs are, by virtue of what they do, they find ways to survive and ways to push through. So I'm very optimistic, given a little help, that small business people will figure out a way to make it work.
Very good. Nice way to end this session. Hey, be sure and tune in for our webinar on Wednesday if you're doing your planning for 2021. We talk about compensation, near and dear to everyone's heart, especially management. And we talk about what's going on with all the different job descriptions. Do we have that slide, Joseph? Well, we go through packages, underwriters, closers, servicers, liquidators, etc. Obviously, business development officers on that. And with that, Katie, thank you very much. Lance, good to see you. And thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have
Have a great day.